nice to be back with you in 2012, and we are kicking off the new year with one of the professors of high-octane, drift champion Vaughn Gittin Jr. He brought 3 of his trick Mustangs today, and as you can see, we have already turned them loose. Let's get started with Xtreme 4x4.
They're strong, they're reliable, and they're affordable. Thousands of them are out there just waiting to be a part of your next project. Today on Xtreme 4x4, we take an in-depth look at the 14-bolt axle, where to find them, what to pay, and how to make them ready to roll.
It's quite funny that the nicknames that we give parts often become more popular than the names given to them by the manufacturer. For example, if you were to ask me what's underneath the hood of this Blazer, I'm simply going to tell you that it's a small block. And those 2 words will tell you that it's a first generation General Motors cast iron 350 cubic inch engine. And the same holds true when we're talking about axles. When you're out on the trail, nobody says that they have an American Axle Manufacturing 10.5-inch ring gear full float axle. They're simply going to tell you that they got a 14-bolt, and you know what they mean. Now, the 14-bolt axle has been the workhorse axle that we've used for years. It's been in a bunch of different trucks, and we've installed them in a lot of rigs. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about today. Nothing but the 14-bolt. We'll show you what makes this axle so great, some of the drawbacks that you're going to find when you'd want to put one of these underneath your rig, and how the aftermarket is making these axles better every day. And it all starts by tearing one down. Now, don't get discouraged if you pull the cover off your 14-bolt and find a pile of rust inside. That's one of the first benefits of this axle. They were installed in trucks from the early 70s up into the late 90s. That means there are millions of them out there that you can source parts from. And honestly, if the housing is straight, everything else can be rebuilt. Once you tear a 14-bolt down, it's easy to see some of the unique features that make this assembly so strong. The pinion is supported by 3 bearings, 2 on the pinion itself, like most axles, and 1 nose bearing that's cast into the differential housing itself. Now, this nose bearing is there to prevent what's called ring gear deflection. That's when the pinion actually pushes the ring gear away from itself under severe load, and that can cause the ring gear teeth to break. Backlash adjustment is done with these threaded adjusters instead of shim packs. Now, that means you can easily fine-tune that adjustment down to 1/1000th of an inch without having to constantly remove the carrier, swap out shim packs, and put it back in. Now, the axle was available in 2 different widths, 63 inches or 67 inches, depending on whether or not it was underneath a dual rear wheel truck. And the tubes themselves are a beefy 3¼ inches round with a 1/2 inch wall thickness. Inside the axle, everything is just as strong. The shafts themselves have a 1.6-inch spline diameter and a 1.35-inch working size. It is a 30-spline coarse spline axle, which gives it very good pressure angles for strength. The pinion is 1.75 inches and 30 splines as well for the yoke, and there's no machining to accept the pinion bearings built into it. That turns a massive 10.5-inch ring gear that is coupled to a 2-piece carrier assembly that rides inside the differential. Now, all that is fine and dandy, but it really matters when you compare it to another setup. This is a Dana 60 ring gear, and you can see that it's physically smaller and therefore not as strong. But the pinion is where the real differences lie. The pinion is machined to accept this rear bearing, and this neck down area is normally where these pinions break. So now that you guys know all the things that make a 14-bolt axle so great, I'm sure you're ready to run out and buy one for your rig. But before you call the junkyard with your credit card number, you need to do a little bit of research. See, the 14-bolt was available in 2 variations. It came in the full float version, and that's the one we've been talking about so far. But there was also a lighter version, a 14-bolt semi-float. Now, it's easy to tell the two apart when you go to pick one out of the junkyard. Right away on the front, there is no removable pinion support like on a full float version. The pinion is just cast into the housing. At the axle end, the axles are held in using C-clips, so there's no removable axle bolts cast into the end of the housing. The drum just slides right off. And most noticeable of all is the rear cover. It is a completely different shape on the semi-float axle. They both have 14 bolts securing them to the housing, but the ring gear relief on the semi-float is on the driver's side of the rig. But your research doesn't stop there. If you're looking for an axle to swap right into your rig, get a hold of a good military surplus company. They take 14 bolts out of the back of retired military trucks, and it's easy to find one of those with a good set of 456 gears and Detroit locker already installed for less than $1,000.
Who wouldn't want a lighter axle and more ground clearance? We'll take our 14-bolt to the next level.
Today, PowerBlock is on location at Ford Lincoln in Franklin, Tennessee, and Vaughn has turned their back lot into his own personal drift course. How awesome was that? What's up, Vaughn?
What's up, Courtney? How are you?
I'm great. Those were some smoky donuts.
You know, I like to have a good time.
Welcome to PowerBlock.
I'm so pumped to be here. Thanks for coming out.
Now, you're a Formula Drift Series champion. Tell us about your killer car.
The Monster Energy Falcon Tire Ford Mustang is a pretty amazing machine engineered for drifting. The entire body is carbon fiber. It's a little bit under 3,000 pounds. The guys at Roush Yates and Ford Racing cooked me up a 800 horsepower motor, 4-speed dog box. Car is very fast, ton of steering angle, and a ton of grip, and most importantly, it's a lot of fun to drive.
You look good in it, and you look good out there.
Thank you very much.
A little later, Vaughn is going to show us how he earns a living, and I may even strap in for a ride.
Are you sure you want to do that?
Heck yes.
There's rules in that passenger seat. No screaming, no crying, no whining.
It's going to be woohoo all the way.
I think it probably will. It's a good time.
So far, we've shown you guys a lot of the benefits to choosing a 14-bolt axle for your project. But don't get me wrong, there are still some drawbacks to running this type of assembly. But the good thing is the aftermarket is solving those problems all the time. The first problem we're going to talk about is ground clearance. The 14-bolt has a very low-slung differential center section. As a matter of fact, sitting on a set of 42-inch tall tires, there's only 13.5 inches of clearance underneath the pumpkin. Now that's because of the large stiffening rib that's cast into the housing to improve the axle's towing capacity, as well as the deep sump to carry the extra gear oil to keep the ring and pinion cool. Now we can solve that by installing what's called a shave kit. Now this is a complete shave kit that we got from Ballistic Fabrication, and it starts with this heavy-duty diff cover. We'll bolt this in place and mark the bottom of the housing. We'll then cut the housing off and replace it with a piece of heavy-duty plate. By cutting the bottom off of the housing, we're going to pick up close to 2 inches of extra ground clearance and smooth up the underside of the axle to make it easier to drag across the rocks. With the bottom of the housing plated, you're not done with your shave job quite yet. You see, now the ring gear is too large to fit back inside the axle. 1/4 of an inch needs to be removed from the entire outside edge. Now, any good local machine shop can do that for you. But if you haven't upgraded to the gear ratio you want yet, the better thing to do is order your gears pre-cut, like this set of 488s that we got from Ballistic Fab. It's machined to fit into the housing with their shave kit, and you'll have all the clearance that you need. So now we have more ground clearance on our axle. Next thing we want to deal with is weight. 14 bolt is a heavy assembly, and one of the easiest ways to save weight is to swap out the drum brakes with one of these disc brake conversion brackets. It's going to save you a good chunk of weight because each drum at the end of that axle weighs over 50 pounds. A brake rotor like this one from EBC Brakes comes in at around 25. 25 pounds lighter per side is a total of 50 pounds. Remove the stock drum from the bearing housing by pressing out the wheel stud. If your studs are in rough shape, pick up some new ones and press them in from the backside to hold the rotor on. The bracket bolts to the factory backing plate flange, and with the hub installed, a caliper from a mid-80s Chevrolet pickup is bolted up. To complete this housing, the entire truss system is added to the disc cover and will give the entire axle assembly a good coat of paint.
Just because they call it a rear axle doesn't mean it has to stay there. We turn our 14 bolt into a steering front axle.
Now you can watch hundreds of PowerBlock episodes for free on any device at the new PowerBlock digital network at powerblocktv.com. And now, back to Xtreme.
Today we're talking about the 14-bolt axle and everything that makes it a great option for your project, as well as some of the drawbacks that the axle has from the factory and the parts that you can install to get over some of those things. Now, so far we've built a very killer 14-bolt rear axle. We've shaved the bottom for extra ground clearance and lightened the assembly up by swapping out the drum brakes for a set of disc brakes. Now that leads us to the next problem with the 14-bolt. They were never installed underneath the front of a truck as a steering axle, only in the back. That means if you want the strength of a 14-bolt axle underneath the front of your rig, you're out of luck. Or are you? Using a set of Crane high clearance chrome moly inner C's and kingpin knuckles, we narrowed up a full float 14-bolt and built a steering axle for the front of our Scrambler project. This gave us all the benefits of the 14-bolt, but as a steering axle. The next thing we want to talk about with the 14-bolt axle is how to install it underneath your rig if you have a rear engine setup. We've shown you before that when you put the engine in the back, the rotation is out by 180 degrees, and you solve that problem by installing the axle upside down in the project. That'll get you driving the right way down the road. But the problem with the 14-bolt is it affects how the pinion bearings are lubricated. Inside the differential, the ring gear acts like a paddle wheel, picking up oil from the bottom of the housing and throwing it into the oil feed for the front pinion bearing. But when you flip that axle upside down, there is no feed port for the gear oil that is being carried by the ring gear. Over time, this causes the bearing to starve for oil and fail. To solve this problem on the 14-bolt, an oil feed must be made by first cutting into the housing and creating a feed trough, then plating it, and finally modifying the pinion support by enlarging the drain hole to now act as the feed. An in-depth look of any axle would not be complete without a good look at all the options for the internals, and we'll start with the axle shafts. You want a good set of 4340 chrome moly shafts like these heavy-duty units from Yukon Gear and Axle. If you're building a steering 14-bolt, you actually want a Dana 60 front shaft. Order it 6 inches longer than you're going to need, and then you can send it out to an axle shaft manufacturer who can cut it and spline it to fit the 14-bolt carrier. We'll put a list of those guys up on our website after the show. Now the rears are a little bit simpler. Yukon has them in a bunch of different lengths, and the splines are actually longer than you're going to need, so you simply cut them to fit in your garage and slide it into your axle, and you're good to go. Now, one complaint about the 14-bolt for years was the fact that there wasn't a lot of options when it came to lockers, but that has changed because of the popularity of the axle, and now you can get many different kinds. We'll start with the ClasSix spool. Now, this will place the differential carrier inside the 14-bolt and give you 100% traction to both rear wheels at all times. It is great for hardcore wheeling, not so good if you plan to run your rig on the street. Now the next step up is a mechanical locker. Now this Yukon Grizzly locker replaces the internals of the factory carrier. It gives you a ratcheting action, but when it senses wheel spin, it'll lock the two wheels together and give you that 100% split between the two. And then it will unlock when you put the truck in reverse and back up a little bit. Now the top of the pile is the ARB air locker. Now this is a 100% selectable locker. Driving around on the street, it is an open differential, but with a flip of a switch on the dash, it locks the two rears together just like a spool, giving you that 100% traction. Now when you're talking about lockers in a 14-bolt, there is one benefit, and that is cost. Believe it or not, because this small Grizzly locker only replaces the internals of the factory carrier, it's a lot less than any other axle. It costs under $400. Now that is half as much as the same locker for a Dana 60, saving you money to put elsewhere on your rig.
Up next, our low-dollar wheeler gets a whole lot of suspension for not a lot of money.
Today on our low-dollar wheeler project, we're going to be talking about suspension systems. And the nice thing about choosing a Jeep Cherokee as the base vehicle for this project is the factory suspension design gives you a lot of different options when you want to take a rig like this and get it up in the air to fit some larger wheels and tires. On the rear is a set of parallel leaf springs that locate the axle and act as the spring. Up front, a 4-link with a panhard bar and a set of coil springs suspend the front axle. When shopping for a lift kit, you do have tons of different options. You can simply add some spacers and get an inch or two worth of lift. Or you can go all out, install a complete aftermarket suspension system with all new links and coil-over shocks. On a Jeep XJ, the size of tire that you want to run on your project plays just as much of a role in the suspension kit you get as your wallet does. If you want to run anything larger than a 32, you need a complete suspension system. Spacers and blocks aren't going to cut it. So we looked through the 4Wheel Parts website, and this is what we found. This is a rock crawler shorty flex setup. Now this will give us 4.5 inches of lift and all the performance we need when we're wheeling off-road. And the best part is it comes in at less than $900. On the rear of our Cherokee, we did choose one extra upgrade, and that is to install the Deaver Long Travel Jeep Speed Spring instead of the lift block and the Adelaide. This is a couple $100 extra, but worth it because the multi-layered spring pack will flex very well, but still offer a very strong spring rate. Up front, we'll start with some taller springs, a dropped track bar bracket, new adjustable lower arms, some sway bar disconnects, and a new track bar. So I'm sure a lot of you guys want to know where exactly we're at money-wise with this truck. Well, believe it or not, for less than $3,000, we have a lifted Jeep Cherokee with a locked rear axle, a winch to put up front, and a set of 33-inch tall tires, and this truck is definitely ready to go wheeling. Oh, and that $3,000 includes the price of the truck.
Up next, Joe and Mike team up with ATK to build a 408-inch street strip LS V8.
Today, Horsepower is going to revive a cool old Camaro with some new tech LS-based horsepower. Also, we'll see which late model muscle cars got what it takes to win big cash at an all-out shootout among the new factory hot rods.
Welcome to the shop and a serious dose of horsepower how-to. Today we brought in a '69 Camaro that has had its nose stuck in the corner for more than 10 years. In its adolescence, it was a street strip machine that hurt some feelings at the track and still managed to keep all of its panels super straight. They fared better than the 396 that left its guts on the quarter-mile strip. We want to see that old first-gen F-body burn up the track and street again. So we teamed up with ATK High Performance to give it a mix of new generation parts and old big block power potential. Like a potent 408-inch iron-blocked LQ4 6-liter backed by an American powertrain Magnum 6-speed. To make the engine drop in without any fabrication, Holley sent us all the swap parts like headers, engine mount plates, and an oil pan. Today we're going to assemble and dyno the engine with Mark Johnson from ATK's High Performance division. He did the machine work and is on hand today to assist with the assembly.
You know, with the exception of maybe having a numbers matching car, this is the way to go. This is it's 21st century. It needs to step it up.
Since 2005, ATK's been designing and building crate and custom engines in every imaginable configuration. While they can handle any stock rebuild, they've gained a reputation for building racing engines as well as street strip power plants for all kinds of American hot rods. Some of the parts Mark brought us are Edelbrock Lingenfelter heads, diamond pistons and rings on Callie's rods, a crane valve train setup, GM Performance Parts carbureted intake manifold that will top with a 950 CFM Ultra HP carb. The block was originally in a V8 truck. It came from the factory with a 4-inch bore and a 3.622 stroke. After Mark had his way with it, it's now got a 4.030 bore with a 4-inch stroke, making it a 4.08. Mark's already installed the Callie's Compstar LS1 crank, made from deep nitrided 4340 steel and counterweighted for awesome bearing load distribution, held in place with 6-bolt mains.
Let's get going with the crane cam. Now this is a heat-treated billet piece that has a custom grind and a really aggressive profile. Now intake valve lift is 624 with a 1.7 ratio rocker arm, and it's got an advertised duration of 297 on the intake, 303 on the exhaust. It's got an operating range from 3,000 to 6,500 RPM, and you should avoid valve float up until about 7,100. One of the first modifications we had to make was to the stock cam retaining plate. If you look close, there's two 30,000 holes drilled into it, and they're to oil these. The first one is a fuel pump eccentric to run a mechanical fuel pump, and the other is to drive the distributor. For a timing chain, we're upgrading to a double roller from Crane for the added strength. Now it comes with hardened steel sprockets and an adjustable degreeing feature. Next, we can install the eccentric.
Now our rods are also a Callie's Compstar. They measure 6'1" in length and they're an H-beam design. They also have some pretty cool features. Chamfered parting lines, D-bird bearing tangs, and they also have gussets inside the rods where there's less meat.
Attached are Diamond's new forged pistons designed for LS engines. They use a standard LS ring package and have a smaller skirt area that has been coated to reduce weight and minimize friction. Up next, a Melling high volume oil pump. Notice how it now requires spacers to clear a double row timing set, which meant Mark had to make additional room in the timing cover as well. This thing came from GM Performance and also houses the Ford small block distributor. A windage tray goes on next, followed by the oil pump pickup, making sure to oil the O-ring to avoid a tear, which could cause oil pressure problems at fire up.
Well, speaking of clearance, Mark did a couple of mods on the oil pan as well, namely blending these intersecting oiling holes and taking some material out of the baffle here so it would clear the pickup tube again because of that double roller. Well, before we completely button up the bottom end, John and I are going to ensure that this pan lines up with the block. That's because with the manual trans, the bottom of the bell housing is secured to the pan itself. So take a straight edge, put it against the back of the block and the back of the pan, and get it perfectly lined up. Repeat on the other side and cinch everything down.
We managed to pull Vaughn out of his competition car for a few minutes. So tell us about the Octane Academy project you're involved with.
Yeah, the Octane Academy is this incredible initiative that the team at Ford has come up with. And basically it's a fantasy camp of sorts. Myself, Ken Block, Tanner Faust, and Brian Deegan are all setting up separate camps that we're designing and creating some rigorous challenges, mental, physical, behind the wheel driving, and just overall fun and challenging things to put people through to let them show us what they got. You know, there's a lot of sacrifice and commitment required to be a pro driver, and we're giving people the opportunity to kind of fill our shoes and have some fun with us.
Nice.
You know, one of the coolest things is that when you win one of our camps, you're going to get a sweet ride from Ford, and I personally am giving away a sweet Mustang. So check it out, OctaneAcademy.com. Basically, go on there, sign up, upload a video. But you got to get crazy with it. You got to get creative to get picked. So, in fact, you should sign up.
I just might do that. Guys, this is a chance of a lifetime. You got to enroll.
We're on a mission to build a potent new power plant for this classic 69 Camaro. Starting with a board and stroke LS foundation, we filled up the bottom end with all kinds of high-performance components. Now it's time for the top end.
The engineers that designed the LS engine had to have been racers or at least hot rodders. Here's a cool little feature they dreamed up that makes changing the camshaft a lot easier, whether the engine is in a car, on a run stand, or on a dyno. Our new roller lifters from Crane are being placed in this little composite tray. Now this is a factory piece that has two jobs. The first is the most important, and it's to keep the lifter in line with the cam lobe. Now the second job comes into play when you're ready to do a cam swap. What you'll have to do is remove your rocker arm, your push rod, and rotate the engine. That'll capture the lifters in this tray and allow you to pull the camshaft out of the front of the motor without catching any lifters on the cam lobes, and you won't even have to remove the cylinder heads.
Now, Edelbrock and Lingenfelter actually teamed up to design the ultimate LS1, LS2 cylinder head. Now, ours come completely CNC machined with 203 intake runners, 78cc exhaust. Our valve package is an inch 570 on the exhaust side with a 202 on the intake and a 65cc combustion chamber. Now that's going to put us right at 11:1 compression ratio for our motor. Now our springs, they're good for up to 650 lift, and originally this came with a pedestal mount rocker arm system. So Mark at ATK actually milled it down so we could run a screw-in stud and guide plate system so we have the benefits of adjustable rocker arms. Before they go on though, we want to verify top dead center so that our balancer is installed properly. Unlike stock LS's, this crank snout has a keyway, and since the engine's using a distributor, we spec'd out an ATI balancer with degree marking so we can make easy timing adjustments.
To seal up the cylinders, we're using Velcro's multi-layer steel head gaskets and ARP head studs, finger tightened only for proper torque. So remember to always torque in a circular pattern from the center out. Next, we drop in the stock lifter valley cover and bolt up the steam vent hose. When you assemble an engine with mixed parts, you have to wait until the heads are installed to measure and determine the pushrod length. To save time, ATK measured and determined hours in advance, so we're dropping them in.
The rocker arms are Crane Cam's Gold Series in a 1:8 ratio. They're designed for LS engines and have needle bearings in the trunnion so they won't affect engines with knock sensors. They can handle up to 700 pounds of open spring pressure and have heat-treated steel roller tips. The 1.8 ratio is going to open the valve faster, farther, and for a longer period of time. Pace Performance sent us the intake manifold for our 408. It's a GM Performance single plane that houses any 4150 style carb. We don't have time to show all the machining ATK did, but we will share Mark's advice for a successful build.
A lot of times you change one part and it changes 3 parts. So it's just a matter of, people say do your homework. Well, a lot of people don't know where to get the book to do the homework. The most important thing is to find a good, reliable source of information so that you can base, your part selection on your application, what you want to achieve.
And like that stone cold teacher we all had once, the dyno is unforgiving.
While our 69 SS patiently awaits a race-ready LQ4 6-liter, we're close to finding out what our parts combo is going to kick out, including Holley's new Ultra HP 950 CFM designed for the strip with a hard coat anodized finish that they call Hardcore Gray. There are a few LS-specific needs we must attend to. The steam produced in the heads requires a vent tube to avoid overheating, and because the oil pump is crank-driven, the only way to safely prime the engine is to fill the oil under pressure. Goodson's pressurized pre-lube oiler does just that. Loaded with Royal Purple 530 weight synthetic oil and 70 pounds of air,
That's plenty.
the oil is forced into every critical component. Starting a dry LS engine to prime can cost you 80% of your bearing life within seconds or worse.
With E3s all around and race fuel in the tank, let's see how we did. No fire.
Were we sure that box was compatible with this distributor?
With no spark and no time to wait, we're swapping to our dyno-specific distributor because Mark's getting pretty anxious. All right, Mark, here we go.
I can't wait to get it on the dyno. You're the first to run this thing. I've run some pretty powerful motors, and the more powerful motor you got, the more you can actually feel this thing. You know, the floor vibrates, the noise, the excitement. It's the whole speed, smoke, excitement kind of thing going on without the smoke. Yeah, I love running the dyno. I rate it right up there with a 12-pack of beer and a chainsaw.
541 horse, 502 foot-pounds at 5,100. Makes over 411 foot-pounds from 2,500 on.
Man, that's torquey.
That's good torque.
And we're just going to give these valves a little spot check after that first pull. Just make sure everything's going good. Don't need any surprises today. Say we're good.
Cool.
Our backup run mimicked the first. With the initial timing at 33, we're going to kick it up a bit.
Oh yeah, we're making some power now.
It's coming up. 565, 519. What's timing that?
That was probably about 34 degrees.
Oh, nice. We got more in it.
We got a little bit of room to play with that.
We're going all the way to 36 and a half.
546, 501. Didn't like the timing change.
Didn't like the timing whatsoever.
We're adding a 1-inch 4-hole spacer to increase the volume of air and give the fuel and air charge a better path to the runners. And then knock the timing down a bit.
I think we'll hit that 575 for sure.
Coming back, 569, 521. This thing's gonna be a fun car on the street.
Looking good.
But Mark's determined to find more. With a little more timing and a couple gallons of fuel, he got it. Almost. 574 horsepower, 531 on the torque.
Looks great, runs great, fits the best of both worlds. Looks like a little road race motor.
Yeah, there you go. You happy?
I'm happy.
That's what matters.
Our Camaro came from the factory with an L35 making 325 horsepower. We're going to take it to the track with 250 more.
Hey, how does this sound? You travel a total of 1 mile and you win 10 grand. Not a bad day's work, huh? All you gotta do is be the top dog in Prestolight's Modern Muscle Challenge. Prestolight invited a couple dozen amateur racers and their late model Mustangs, Camaros, and Challengers to Milan Dragway here in Michigan. The MMX Challenge is a race within the race sponsored by the NMCA. With the exception of lightweight hoods, bumpers, and balances, the bodies must be factory original. Engines have to be stock, although power adders are allowed along with any transmission and rear end. But they've got to run on DOT tires, well, like drag radials. Kevin Yoke brought his GT500 from Rhode Island with a pretty mean-looking power package.
They come factory with a supercharger, so the easiest thing to do is to bolt on an aftermarket supercharger. And with that supercharger, you can get 1,000 horsepower to the wheels without too much effort, as long as you have the other stuff to support it. This true street type event is all about consistency. So that 30-mile drive and then the 3 passes right in a row, you don't have any chance for error.
Mark Carlisle brought a 2010 Camaro from his hometown, Columbus, Ohio.
It's basically a stock motor with twin turbos and an intercooler, and not really a whole lot else done to it.
Rules stipulate you have to use at least one Prestolite product.
And I also have some of their Excel spark plugs. It's a nice silver tip plug, so we started using them here this year.
Prestolites jumped onto this modern muscle car scene with a passion.
The key thing here for us was to develop product. And we developed and launched over 100 new parts for these 3 modern muscle cars.
MMX cars out here in front first. The first car, MMX car, can go all the way out to the front.
The day starts with a driver's meeting where NMCA officials explain the rules, which are much like their True Street class.
If you're not there when we're ready to go, we leave you. So make sure you're ready to go in 20 minutes outside.
The mandatory 30-mile drive is through bumpy back roads, then onto a 4-lane concrete slab before heading back to the ultimate strip test. From the country lanes straight to the staging lanes, and here we find one of the few Challenger owners with a simple strategy for his totally stock Hemi.
A little bit of luck and a little bit of timing.
Well, how you good on this tree, you think? It's a pro tree.
I'm used to a Pro Tree, so that's not too bad. I like that.
Each driver gets 3 qualifying runs. The ETs are averaged, and the top Mustang, Camaro, and Challenger, plus a wild card, make up the final 4. During the day, Robert Fortin and his Shelby GT500 dropped some jaws and a few hopes with runs in the high 8s. The French-Canadian's engine has 2 massive turbos, and it's all backed by a T400 and a 9-inch rear end with 369 gears. However, he made a cam change before the trip and only got 2 test runs the night before.
I think I've done 1 run, and I was quite happy with it, but it was a very low boost just to see how it feels with those tires. And then I went to the second round to make a second test, and the battery got dead.
It's amazing. We've got a field full of cars, anywhere from 12-second street cars to 9-second cars, and even some 8-second cars that can be street driven, can be in the staging lanes, and really perform with our products.
Carlisle and his Camaro and Hibbs made the final 4 and were paired against each other for the first semifinal run. It was Carlisle's race all the way from the start to the finish line. Will Carroll in the red pony was the wild card, and while he beat Sportin off the line, the Canadian easily chased him down on the way to an 882 ET win.
I wanted to make sure that I was not going to overspin the tires and to do the run complete to the end. So I start slowly, and I'm picking up more, so 890s is pretty good at this stage.
So how does Carlisle feel about facing Fortin in the finals?
I think I heard somebody else say it's like bringing a knife to a gunfight.
It's going to be fun. Very, very happy to be here, and hopefully we can win this.
Carlisle cuts a better light, but not enough for the turbo Mustang that's spooled up to run an 890 at 156 miles an hour. $1,000 goes to each runner-up, while one proud Canadian heads home $10,000 richer. All thanks to an 8-second Mustang with a factory engine and a company with a commitment to modern muscle.
This is a special on-location PowerBlock, and we've been hanging with Vaughn Gittin Jr. all day. He's been making smoky donuts all over this lot. Up next is an all-new trucks as Project ClasSix returns for a new interior.
Today, Project ClasSix is getting a new interior makeover that matches its style and only costs about $100. Then we'll make and install an inexpensive parts store glass pack exhaust. It's all today here on Trucks.
Hey, welcome to Trucks. Well, Project ClasSix has come a long way since we first got our hands on it, and man, is it neat to hear that engine run. And although it looks pretty cool, not quite done yet. Needs a couple of projects. We need an exhaust system, and we want to get rid of the last remnants of this ugly tractor green on the inside. So today, we're going to show you guys a couple of things. We're going to show you how to put an exhaust system on using a universal kit, as well as how to do a low-buck custom interior. Now, all it takes is a few dollars, some imagination. Now, we're not going to completely blow apart the interior of this truck just to paint the panels. We got pretty good access to everything with some trim and the upholstery removed, and it just doesn't really fit the project to blow the doors apart, pull the glass back out like you would a high-end custom, because let's face it, this truck is not a high-end custom. It's a driver with a capital D. After a thorough wipe down with the Duplicolor prep solvent, now we can start masking. We're using typical body shop supplies from Auto Body Color and Supply, masking up the gauges and all the switches, just so we don't have to disassemble them. When you're doing a paint job like this, the masking paper and tape serves 2 purposes. Not only does it protect from overspray, but it also protects from your sandpaper, or in our case, the red scuffing pad, which is pretty aggressive. It'll ruin your chrome. With all of the shiny scuffed off the horrible green paint, I give it a wipe down with a rag slightly moistened with the Duplicolor prep solvent and blow all the dust out of the cracks and crevices. Now, the process is called painting, but we're actually using a primer. And it might seem like we're just sort of trading one horrible color for another with the red oxide that we're using. It really was part of our plan all along. The red oxide kind of looks like terracotta and really reminds us of the southwestern feel that we got from Steve Silva's truck when we first saw the photos. He kind of modeled this project, at least the looks of it, after his truck. Now, rattle cans get a bad rap sometimes because the paint flakes off if you don't put enough on. Put 3 fat coats of this product on and you'll get great results and a long life out of it. Now that's got to sit and dry for a little while, and we can unmask everything and install the upholstery. Speaking of upholstery, here's what we pulled out of the truck. It looks kind of like the rest of it, sort of worn out. And you know, to fit the theme, we could put this back in, but it looks a little dated. So we want to update it and follow the theme of the rest of the truck and show you guys how to do your own custom upholstery inexpensively and, like the rest of the truck, easily. With a few simple supplies you can get just about anywhere, a little bit of common sense. And this is what we found to upholster it. The colors are perfect with the colors of the rest of the truck. It sort of looks like a Midwestern-y, sort of a Native American feel, and more importantly, check out the fabric. It's got a bit of stretch in every direction, so that's going to make it easier to pull around corners, which is pretty important when you're doing your own upholstery. Now, this was quite inexpensive. I've got 2 yards here. It was about $16, which is plenty to do the whole interior of this truck, or at least all the panels that we're going to do. It's going to give it a cool look, and it's not that hard to do. Now, since this fabric actually has a pattern, you can use it to your advantage and line it up so that you have a symmetrical design. That also makes it easier to duplicate on the other side. Now, with the rough idea of how much fabric we're going to need, I take the rest and put it off to the side so it doesn't get dirty, because that's going on the headliner. Folding the workpiece in half allows me to cut the piece in 2, and that gives me the fabric to cover the other trim panel. Now, to the Sid Shavers and the Ron Manguses of the world, I apologize for my technique. I don't pretend to do the type of work that you guys do. However, this is something that everybody watching can do at home. Now, we're using a Loctite headliner adhesive, which is a spray contact cement. You can get it at most auto parts stores, and it's perfect for this project. Now, you're going to notice that we've sped a lot of this footage up, and it's not to hide anything. In fact, it's to show you the whole process. If we played it in real time, it just wouldn't fit in the show. Now, a contact cement means that you spray both surfaces. We've got a little overspray on the paper, so we're putting down more so it doesn't stick. The great thing about contact cement, when you let both sides dry, is that it allows you to work with it and still stays open long enough to where you can apply and reapply and correct your pattern, like I'm doing. With the fabric locked down on the front side, I'm flipping it over and just kind of giving it a refresher coat of glue on both surfaces. Now, the 2 inches of overcut on all sides, well, that's not an accident. It's always nice to have more fabric than you need so you can pull it and push it and correct as you need to. This is a fairly simple process on the straight sides, and it just involves folding it over. The glue will take care of the rest. The corners are a different story because, of course, the material gathers. So you're going to have to do a series of relief cuts so you don't have a bulge there that'll hold the panel out from the door, and it wraps around nicely and you've got a good glue contact. Interestingly enough, this is kind of how metal acts too, in the sense that you can't really ever shrink it. You can just work with it and mold it around to where it does what you want it to do. Now, don't get into the mindset where you have to be in a hurry. You don't. You've got time to work with this, and with the glue fresh, well, you can apply and reapply. I'm using single-edged razor blades to trim, but a good sharp pair of scissors will do the same thing. It's just easier with the blades. And you're going to go through about a half a dozen of them because the fabric dulls the blade out pretty well. This trim panel took about 15 minutes real time and is the most basic of projects, but it looks pretty good.
How do you free up a frozen engine? We'll show you how on this week's PowerBlock Tech Tip.
It's common for old engines that have been sitting for a long time to freeze up due to moisture in the atmosphere, causing rings to rust to the cylinder walls. Before disassembling the motor, try to overcome that rust by rotating the crank by hand. If that doesn't work, remove all the spark plugs and spray about an ounce of the new WD-40 Specialist Rust Release Penetrant into each cylinder. Wait about 15 minutes for the rust release penetrant to work its magic and break through, releasing all the rust that's freezing the rings to the cylinder wall. Pretty easy way to get an engine unstuck and rotating once again.
Gary Ridge, the CEO of the WD-40 company, is going to join me next week for an update on the auction of the C. McCare's Chip Boost Design Challenger. And now, more trucks.
Hey, welcome back to Trucks. Well, check out our reupholstered trim panels. I think they look pretty snazzy, and they're going to look really good up against the primered interior. But we're not done yet. The headliner is actually the only other piece in the cab that needs reupholstered. And these, I don't know if they're reproductions or originals. My guess is they're reproductions, but look at this. That's mold. So, strike one, you're out. Now, the other part of the headliner is, well, it's just plain nasty. That's mouse debris, and I don't know, there's some kind of an insect nest in there. Those are spores from some alien planet. We're not going to touch this because replacements are inexpensive from LMC Truck. So we got new headliner boards that we're just going to reupholster kind of the same way. A little bit different technique since it's so big. Pay attention. There is no prep with the brand new headliner boards. But for applying the adhesive to the fabric, we're only doing one side at a time. That way it's much easier to manage, and you can flip your other side over, apply the adhesive, and then just gently pull it against itself. This allows you to pull any folds or wrinkles out of the fabric and to make sure that your pattern is aligned. The technique for folding onto the back side of the headliner is the same as with the door trim panels. However, there are small reliefs for the screws to hold it in place, so we're making a slight relief cut around them so we don't have to poke and hunt for them. And believe it or not, the function of a headliner back in the 40s was literally to keep the condensation from dripping onto your head, unlike today's Luxo boxes to where it actually serves as insulation. Speaking of insulation, the cab of this truck used to sound like an empty steel drum when you rapped on it, so DEI's Boom Mat acoustic tiles are going to solve that problem. Here we've cut a couple of tiles in half and placed them in between the bows on the back of the cab, and we're using full tiles, 3 of them, on the ceiling. Now, you don't have to cover every inch of sheet metal to make a dramatic difference with this insulation. All right, I don't know if you remember the sound of this thing without the boom mat, but listen to this. That's dead. Cool. Now, since these are not custom panels, just the originals reupholstered, the reassembly is easy, but here's a tip. Use an awl or a really small screwdriver to find the screw holes. That way you don't have to poke around with the screw and risk pulling fibers out of your fabric. The paint on the window frames was in pretty good shape, so all we did was reinstall them. This is where it pays dividends to keep track of your screws. Now, the headliner is fairly easy to install, if not a little bit frustrating just because of gravity. But it helps to pre-align and pre-trim your headliner board before you upholster them. They're held in place with screws on the back side and pinched with the weather seals on the left and right side. The front half is held in place with the same screws that hold the window trim in place, and again, pinched with a weather seal on the left and right sides. Now, we don't know if this is original or not, but the center section was held up with a steel bow. It didn't really look original, but it served its purpose, so it gets reused. And as far as the seat, we didn't even have to touch it.
Hey guys, welcome back to the shop. Well, Kevin's got the interior finished up, and that means we've only got one project left on our 49 Chevy, and that's adding an exhaust system. Now, on a truck as old as our 49, well, finding an exhaust system in a catalog somewhere can be kind of tricky. And if there's limited options, what's available may not be what you want. So what we're going to do is make our own. But we're not going to spend a ton of money doing it. So we're going to avoid the stainless steel and go with aluminized steel tubing that we picked up from our local parts store, along with a pair of cheapo glass packs. Now, our exhaust manifold kit came with flanges, so we were off to a good start. And as far as bends go, well, we use a piece of TIG wire, but a coat hanger will do the same thing. But the TIG wire is obviously really small in diameter, and the exhaust tubing we're using is 2 inches. So there's going to be some clearance issues that we run into with the pipe that we didn't with the TIG wire. All right, we're going to be hitting the steering shaft. Now, to make room for the steering shaft, we broke out the rosebud tip on our oxyacetylene torch and created a nice little curve for the steering shaft to fit around. A couple of tack welds holding the pipe in place. We can check for clearance. Now, the second pipe is nearly identical. And once we get it bent and tacked into position, we can figure out where we want to place our glass packs. Like right there. And with both down pipes tacked together and cut the length, we pulled them out so we could finish weld the flanges. Now the tubing we're using is 2 inches in diameter, but the glass packs that we picked up on sale are 2 1/4 inches, but we can make them fit no problem. Now we decided to go with glass packs for a few reasons. Like we told you, they were cheap, but they also have a cool, unique, and distinct sound that should work pretty well with our old straight 6. And lastly, well, these things are small, making fitment a breeze. To keep things simple, we decided just to run the tailpipes out of the side of the truck, rather than go over the rear axle and through the 4-link suspension. And the great thing about this truck, well, we can leave the raw metal edges alone. It's only going to add to the character when it starts to corrode a little bit. And don't look for any fancy chrome exhaust tips either. Just doesn't fit this truck. And with everything mocked up, we can remove both sections of the exhaust and fully weld them. Then it's back on the truck for final installation, including gaskets, adding the exhaust hanger, and fine-tuning and finalizing the location of our tailpipes. Well, I gotta say, that sounds really good. And considering it costs less than 200 bucks, that just makes it sound better.
Hey, welcome back to Trucks. Well, ever since they've been putting computers in vehicles, the automotive aftermarket has been figuring out ways to get inside those systems so that guys like you and me can tune our vehicles for better performance. Everything from more power to increased fuel economy or better towing performance. And since the introduction of OBD2 connections in 1996, well, that just got a whole lot easier and an entire industry was born. And that's history. But today, you get a glimpse into the next generation of that industry with the Superchips Vivid. The Vivid is an internet tablet and uses an Android operating system and goes way above and beyond what you'd expect from a typical tuner. Let me show you what this thing can do. Now, with this being a tablet, well, it's got an HDMI out, which allows us to connect it to a big screen TV and really show you the features. Now, the Vivid is, of course, a tuner, and you can use preset tunes or go into the advanced settings for a multitude of parameters and create your own tune. The wireframe gives you a visual guide as to what section of the vehicle that you're tuning. Now, once you've decided on the changes you want to make, Vivid takes a snapshot of your truck's stock tune, stores it safely, and then uploads your custom tune onto your truck's computer. The return to stock feature safely and quickly returns it back to the stock vehicle parameters if you ever need to return it to the dealership for service.
Now with the calibration we've got loaded in, we're expecting to pick up some horsepower and some torque. The torque is handy if you tow something like a bass boat or a race car. The horsepower, well, if you need to flat-foot it to merge with heavy traffic on the interstate, you know you've got the power there. But we also expect to see some fuel economy gains because of the more precise tune loaded into the PCM. Another cool feature is the virtual gauges and the direct connection they have with the PCM. A lot of time the gauges that you see in your instrument cluster are electronically dampened or controlled, or they just show you a normal range. These give you a direct port of contact to the PCM so you get accurate and precise information.
Now, one of the features of Vivid is the inclinometer. And here in the truck shop, well, it might seem kind of gadgety, although it's pretty cool. But where this really comes into play is out on the road if you're pulling a heavy load and you're going down some steep grades. Wasteful driving habits like panic stops and jackrabbit starts, they can literally burn your money. Well, the Mileage Mentor can help you police that driving style, make you a more efficient driver.
Nobody wants to burn more fuel than necessary, unless you're playing around. So while you're cruising around, it's nice to get the best fuel economy possible. And the Mileage Mentor tells you if you could let off the gas a little bit and coast to a stop sign. And there's no better way of getting your attention than showing a $20 bill burning down. And there it goes. Just for testing, of course. Now, most programmers or tuners will read and clear diagnostic trouble codes. But if you don't know what the code means, it doesn't do you much good. Well, the Vivid gives you the code number and the definition in plain English, so you know what the problem is and you can fix it.
Now, when it comes to updates, unlike in the past where you'd have to take your device and plug it into a computer for your updates, well, all Vivid needs is to be close to a Wi-Fi network or a hotspot, and it happens automatically. You don't even have to think about it. But Vivid is not just about function. There's some features in this interface that are pretty fun too.
Like the video camera. Say you've got a tune loaded in and you want to see what kind of gains you've made, so you head off to the local drag strip. Well, you can record your run so you can show all of your friends when you get back home. Speaking of which, on the way there, you can listen to music that you've loaded into the device from your own personal music library. Now, the Vivid has lots of features and lots of applications, but one thing it's missing is a common sense app. That's up to you. Don't use this thing too much while you're supposed to be driving. Use your noggin. Guys, thanks for watching Trucks. See you next week.
Hey guys, we're back with Vaughn. So Vaughn, we have to hear about this very sexy RTR-X here.
Yeah, this is a project that I did with the Need for Speed crew. The goal was to build a car that could be thrashed in real life, but also thrashed in the video game world that is Need for Speed. It started out as a 69 Mustang Dynacorn reproduction body. It's got a Ford Racing Boss 302 crate motor, inboard cantilever suspension, Motec ECU. I mean, the car is really done up. Art Morrison even made us a custom front subframe for it. It's a lot of fun, and you get crazy looks cruising down the street in it.
It is killer, and I've heard a lot of buzz about the Mustang RTR here.
Yeah, the Mustang RTR it's my vision of a new generation of Mustang. I designed this car from the ground up myself and my designer, and it's basically a performance and appearance package that's available at premier dealers all over the world.
Horsepower?
It's a little bit over 420. A lot of fun, lights the tires like crazy, but as you know, my competition car's here. Why don't you go for a ride?
We'll see. Right now, Musclecar.
Today on Musclecar, the guys cinch on all the pretties that make Limelight look out of sight. Watch out or this Cobra jet might bite you. And Tommy decides that he really doesn't need eyebrows.
We started with a tired 1970 Camaro RS with a sad little 307 small block, a bargain barn paint job, and a mega rad 80s style interior.
We went out and found a rusty 402 in a barn, tore it down, sleeved it, built it up, and finished it with an L78 396.
After a little body work, we brought it back to its GM factory color, citrus green. Then we planted some stripes across the hood and deck.
With all new front and rear suspension, which replicates what a big block would have been sitting on out of the factory, air correct wheels and tires, gnarly 4-speed, and a light saddle interior that would make an angel sing. Limelight is dang close to being finished.
We're gonna get her buttoned down, topped off, and fired up.
But we've got to take care of some exterior trim, do a bit of wiring, and get that big block fired up before we can do that. So we better get to work.
And we've got the majority of the parts that still need to go on the car all laid out here in the blanket, and they're laid out in the same position that they need to go on the car. Now that's gonna save us some time from searching around trying to find stuff as we go. Now every part that we're not reusing is an accurate reproduction from year one.
We decided to reuse the grill bezel because it was one of the pieces that held up pretty well over time. Advanced plating made it look brand new again. Despite the SS package, most of the trim options are RS Camaro style.
These are the pieces that define the look of the car. There's a certain feeling of satisfaction that goes along with the final few components getting put in place.
Not to mention the anticipation that comes with being so close to being able to drive it. It takes a lot of man hours to turn an infused wad of steel back into a rolling piece of Detroit muscle. Ooh yeah, that's the money right there. Better than gravy and biscuit. And that mirror is nice, but the reflection is awesome. It can be pretty difficult separating the details from the RS package and what's supposed to come from the SS package. This car originally rolled off the assembly line with RS badging on the fender, but it's supposed to have the SS badging. We needed to come up with the correct SS emblems, so we gave Year One a call.
Now it's time to put emblems back on your car. There's a few different ways to do it. You can go to an old assembly manual and take it from there. You can find pictures of original cars and hope that they're correct, or you can find an original fender or panel and build a pattern off of that. Now the tape will usually run along a body line like this because that's a given. You know where that is. From there you can start just make a little crease or mark with your fingernail or pen or whatever where the edge of the fender is, where your body lines are, and where the front edge of the fender is. Now that you know where your parameters are, where your edges are, you can go back and start marking your centers. Now this is a 350 car, not a 396, but at the very least the SS emblems will be in the correct position. And then you got a pattern that you know is correct. It doesn't get any more accurate than that.
Still to go, working out the Camaro kinks and pulling an all-nighter to bring a big block to life.
This makes no damn sense. Hey guys, welcome back. Project Limelight is mere moments away from firing up for its first time, but that means we're working on the final details, which usually takes up a lot of time.
But that's how it is when you come into the home stretch of a build like this. You got to track little things down like wiring gremlins and beat them out of your car. Then we can top off the fluids, check for leaks, and hopefully fire this dude up. It's so nice working on older cars like this. You can actually reach all the bolts. I'm on a bell housing bolt right now.
Looking at how the PCV valves are routed.
Is the positive cable supposed to go under that motor mount or above it? Because I'm thinking it's supposed to go under it.
I figured. I really don't know what that is.
It sure seems to fit awful nice running it that way.
Ouch. I'm popping in a couple of new U-joints. We decided to go ahead and reuse the stock dry shaft. We had to swap out the front yoke for the larger big block version. Now it's also a good time to double check your fluids. Empty. There ain't much worse than getting a couple miles down the road and realizing that you ain't got no gear oil in that rear end.
To all you weekend warriors out there that drive late model, whatever, fill in the blank, during the week, keep in mind that the early transmissions here don't use ATF transmission fluid. This is back when the machining process in these things were about as rough as the people that shifted them. They need 90 weight gear oil, not ATF. So don't put ATF in a Muncie, you will destroy it. Stick your finger in there and the level should be just below that thread, and it's right there. So we got it. I like to add a dab of Loctite thread sealer just for insurance. Now guys, remember when you're starting a brand new motor, do your best to pre-fill the oil filter, because by doing this, that'll help prevent a dry start. It's a lot easier on the engine. Another mistake that a lot of guys make is once you get this thing cinched down to where that seal is just kissing the bottom of the block, don't turn it on there another 2-3 turns, you'll never get it off. All it needs is about a quarter of a turn, and that's it. Okay, go.
Yep.
Down?
Yep.
Okay, down. That's what you're watching for right there. See all those little air bubbles coming out? You crack it open, watch for any bubbles, and there wasn't a single bubble in there. That means that you got it. It's always a good idea to use break-in oil when you first fire a new motor.
Now it's time to get her to move under her own power. And you can see what we have here is a whole lot of work to do.
Straight ahead, Ford wasn't messing around when they built this big block Mustang, and the guys do some troubleshooting on Limelight's 396 power plant. Today's flashback, a 1968 Mustang 428 Cobra Jet.
Mustang, the original, America's favorite sports car, with 3 new models. Norman flipped for the new Mustang Fastback.
In 1967, Ford introduced the first big block in the Mustang with a 390 V8. But it never quite had the performance that fans were looking for. When legendary Ford dealer Bob Casca dropped a race-tuned 428 in his 67, he shaved a full second off his quarter-mile time. Hot Rod profiled it, and Ford was flooded with mail begging for a 428 in a stock Mustang.
Now it's true, you could get a 428 in a Shelby Mustang, but it would cost you nearly $5 grand. Way out of the price range for most guys. When the Ford team wiped out the competition with a set of 428 powered Mustangs at the 68 Winter Nationals, the Blue Oval Brass knew what they had to do.
On April 1st, 1968, the Mustang 428 Cobra Jet was born. Hot Rod declared it, get this, the fastest running pure stock in the history of man.
Starting with a standard 428 big car engine, Ford outfitted it with larger valve heads and the intake off of a 427, plus stronger connecting rods and a nodular iron crankshaft.
The Ram Air Scoop sat on top of a vacuum-actuated butterfly valve that fed air into the 735 CFM Holley floor barrel. Rated at just 335 horsepower, the reality was closer to 410.
CJs came standard with beefed up front shock towers and rolled on F70 by 14 polyglass. They also got the GT treatment, fog lamps, wheel covers, dual-tipped exhaust, and a C-stripe. There were no Cobra badges to be found though. Only the unique hood stripe and scoop made it stand out from the other ponies.
Well, it certainly stood out to Keith Stem, who was just 19 at the time. Local legend Dick Hoffman was racing the car for a Ford dealer on the strips near Nashville.
I was into drag racing in 1968, and I saw this car run on the track, and I knew the gentleman that built it and drove it, and the people who owned it. And I just drove by the dealership one night. The car was sitting in the showroom floor, and I said, I gotta have it. I got it. Had it ever since.
The price tag was around $3,900, but that included some extra race components like an aluminum intake, dug headers, a set of 411 gears, and a sun tack. Since it was made to race, there was no radio, clock, console, or fold-down rear seat.
He got a best quarter-mile time of 12:85 at 108 miles an hour on street tires. After a while, though, family life took over, and the car sat in his garage for over 20 years.
When his son needed a car to drive, Keith got the bug to restore it. It's now back to its original race setup and has won so many awards, it's now retired. But it won't be going quiet.
After the break, me man, me make fire.
We're having a little engine trouble. Don't know if it's vacuum leak or distributor problem, or possibly even carburetor. Okay. Go ahead. Stop. Pump it. Go again. Let's go again. Go ahead.
This little behind the scenes look doesn't always go smooth.
We were here late last night trying to get this thing tuned, and it wasn't working out at all. And it's just one of those crazy kind of little deals. Can't quite figure it out.
Limelight's got an attitude.
It's making us work for it. I'm just gonna put the fuel in it. That way I know.
Wait a minute. Did you buy diesel?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay, just checking.
It upsets the rings.
Ah.
Warning, these guys are joking. Do not put diesel in your muscle car. You will make it very sad.
This is about the part where somebody usually says, hey y'all, watch this. Guess the timing's off, and so are my eyebrows.
Flames coming out of the carburetor mean that your intake valve is open in a cylinder when it gets sparked. Your ignition system and rotating assembly are plumb out of whack.
Using a timing light, you can tell how many degrees advanced or retarded your engine is timed, Rotating the distributor changes the point at which the plug fires.
That's timing. All engines have a sweet spot for initial timing. L78s were happiest at around 4 to 6 degrees advance.
The timing tab on this thing's off by like that much. Because you bring it down to where it's supposed to be, it won't even run.
Your problem can also be aggravated by other small issues, like having a mistuned carburetor.
At least it's letting us idle it down a little bit now. I'm starting to hear the cam lope a little bit.
Double checking your specs never hurts. Tuna, let's see, hot idle speed for this one, 700 actually. Looking up to actually see the correct tune or the timing spec on it, says it sets at 4 degrees before. Fuel front pressure, we checked that last night. It's supposed to be, we're sitting at about 5.5, and that's within. This kind of fix can be real tricky. Sometimes you don't know if you need to be adjusting the carb or the distributor.
As long as you keep making a little bit of progress at a time, then you know you're headed in the right direction. We're also dealing with a lot of components that can change the requirements of the motor by small amounts. A little here and a little there can add up pretty fast.
Just trying to figure out where this dude's gonna be happy. Well, we copied this thing as close as we could off of a L78. But at the end of the day, original L78 parts ain't easy to come by.
It starts too good. Timing ain't that far off.
Way back.
You can't ask for it to start no better than that. We looked hot and heavy trying to find the right air cleaner, but the best we could come up with was a Z28 version. And really, when you get down to it, that's the name of the game when you're doing a resto job.
Now guys, we know that we could have spent literally years tracking down every single little correct part for this car. Man, we wanted to build it and drive it. And besides, you can always swap out the incorrect parts for the correct ones as you find them. Now, if you have any questions about today's show, you can check it all out at powerbblocktv.com.
The next time you see this ride, we'll be riding in it at the Good Guys show. But we're all out of time for this week. So until next week, y'all keep it between the ditches.
Hey, I'm driving.
No, I'm driving.
No, I'll let you drive, but I'm driving this thing.
Flip you for it.
Flip me nothing.
Well, we're wrapping up with Vaughn Gittin Jr. We want to thank the Tennessee Automotive Group and Ford Lincoln of Franklin for letting Vaughn loose on their lot today. This has been a blast. And we want to thank you, Vaughn, for coming out.
Well, thanks for having me. Always a blast with you, Courtney. Now let's go do some real drifting.
Let's do it. I'm Courtney Hansen. Thanks, guys. I'll see you next time.
Next week, Gary Ridge, CEO of the WD-40 Company, joins Courtney with an update on the auction of the Foose-designed SEMA Cares Challenger. Hold on, Courtney.